Hello, my name is Sam Reeder, and today I'm going to be talking about Andy Reardon's What Red Flag Laws Get Wrong. This is an op-ed that talks about gun control across the United States and more about how criminals commit crimes, not guns. So really she's talking about these red flag laws in the United States and how these certain red flag laws are actually wrong and how we can fix them to more encompass not affecting guns, but rather the people that are committing these crimes with the guns, and how guns are meant more for personal protection for certain people, and how these tragedies or things that happen outside of personal protection are more falling on people with mental health issues or any other certain factors that could arise. So the three things I wanted to talk about was certain fallacies, universal and particular audiences, and then as well as stasis theory. So the first fallacy I wanted to talk about is a traditional fallacy, and it's the fallacy of loaded questions. So this fallacy is focused on phrasing a question, the phrasing of a question, and breezed by the facts that could be true or could not be true because of the contents of the question. So I think this first quote that she mentions here that reads, "So instead of passing new restrictions on law-abiding citizens like Maine Democrats want to do, how about we enforce the laws that actually currently exist?" I think this falls under the loaded question fallacy because it kind of proposes these facts that could be true or untrue. I think the average person like myself, before diving into this op-ed, I didn't know a lot about those red flag laws and if they were really working or not. Obviously, there's a lot of tragedies around the United States, including guns and gun control. But we don't know if that's because of the certain laws or if there's other certain personal characteristics or anything like that. So I think that the average person, when posed with something like this, like a phrase like that or a question like that, they really wouldn't know what to say, and I think it falls under that loaded question fallacy. Another fallacy that I found that you can actually use the same quote for is the false dilemma fallacy. So this fallacy is described as one that limits the amount of options regarding the current scenario, and it shows that there's only one real option or one option. I think this same quote, which again reads, "So instead of passing new restrictions on law-abiding citizens like Maine Democrats want to do, how about we enforce the laws that currently exist?" I think this falls under this fallacy because she's kind of showing that there is only one option to fixing this issue, and that's enforcing the laws that currently exist. I think that if Democrats and Republicans came together and they tried to find new legislation or new laws that could work, maybe newer laws could work. You don't always have to enforce these ones that we currently have in line. So I feel like she's only giving that real one option there when it comes to fixing the issue. So then for universal audiences, when trying to look at universal audiences, I don't really think she's speaking to a universal audience. It seems that she's speaking to this particular audience of, right-leaning, for guns audience, and also like Maine Republicans, as she mentions Maine Democrats early in the article. And you can see that she's kind of reaching towards this particular audience with some of the labels that she ascribes herself with, which is owner of East Coast School of Safety, and then also the Maine State Director for Women for Gun Rights. So with these two labels, it's kind of easy to see where her argument is coming from, and it shows that she's trying to reach this particular audience on that right side of gun control, or the for guns, want to keep guns side of the argument. And she's not really reaching that universal audience. So she falls within that bias of the right side of gun control, and it's hard for her to reach that universal audience. So universal audiences, they usually transcend a social group and try to put something out that tests the frame of reasoning. She's not really doing so. She's falling within that gun control social group, which we've seen a lot over the past couple of years, and one that has come a lot more prevalent. So she's reaching more towards that particular audience for gun control, and she's not really reaching a universal audience. She's not really going against the grain with anything, so it doesn't really meet a universal audience. So then finally for stasis, there's obviously those different levels of stasis, and she meets a lot of those on the different levels of stasis. For the first level of stasis, the one that talks about facts and how facts are relating to a current issue, she talks about extreme risk protection orders, or ERPOs, and how they have become the go-to policy. So obviously she's talking about facts here, how they become the go-to policy. That is true. So we can see there in that first level of stasis that she is reaching that facts level. And then also the definition level of stasis. I thought this one she reached a lot more fully than the other levels, which is why I wanted to include it in the short video. So for this definition level of stasis, she does a lot of different things that define the certain issue and like define certain things that she wants others to do. So a quote that relates to this is, reads as, dangerous, threatening individuals are solely responsible for committing acts of violence and pose the greatest risk to our community. So we can see that she's defining that issue with America and really this issue. It's more about the people within the issue and all the people that are committing these tragedies rather than the guns that are used in these tragedies, you know, kind of like how I talked in the beginning. And she also talks about that quote that I mentioned before on passing new restrictions, or instead of passing new restrictions on law-abiding citizens like Maine Democrats want to do, how about we enforce the laws that currently exist? Another part of the definition level of stasis, because she's defining the laws that we currently have and wants to define these laws that we currently have rather than, you know, making these new laws. And those two levels of stasis are very, very prevalent. The last one I want to talk about, I'm not going to touch on all the levels of stasis, but the three really prevalent ones was the final level of stasis, which is the procedure. Reardon talks about multiple different avenues that we as Americans could take to help rectify this issue. One of them comes later in the op-ed where she says that evil exists and lurks around every corner. That's why, as a firearms trainer and proud member of Lumens for Gun Rights, I urge all my friends and neighbors to purchase a firearm and learn how to use it. You are your own first responder. So she's defining this issue that we are our own first responders, that we need to protect ourselves, and that we need guns in case we get in a certain situation that involves violence or that threatens our family or anything like that. So she's defining what we should do as Americans and kind of giving us a call to action, which relates to that procedure, not the definition, but rather the procedure of what we should do and how we should go about something with that call of action. So overall, I think this was a really good article to choose to analyze throughout throughout the year. I think it gave me a lot of new perspective, and using these different argumentative contexts I think was really important. It taught me a lot, and it gave me a different look on the issue because I was on the total opposite side of her before doing a lot of this. But after, I think it gave me a new perspective and a lot of different things to think about when thinking about this issue. So I think it was a really transformative experience and one I want to do with other pieces of literature and other pieces of work. So thank you for listening. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed.